There's a real behind-the-scenes energy around this Chargers offseason that you just cannot ignore. While everybody else is locked in on the biggest names, Los Angeles is working through the details. An undrafted center who could turn into a quiet find, a veteran option who might help protect Justin Herbert, the next mental jump Mike McDaniel wants from his quarterback, and a major investment in players built for his system. This is not just off-season noise. This is roster building. This is recognizing needs before they become problems. This is a team trying to create an edge before the field exposes every weakness. Drop a like right now because today we're going inside the building. And the first name here is not the guy walking in with national buzz, major interviews, and fans already buying jerseys before training camp even starts. That's exactly why he deserves a closer look. Jacob Spomer steps into this story as the type of player who, from the outside, may look like just another undrafted free agent. But when you look at roster construction, he might be a really interesting clue about what the Chargers are trying to build. Los Angeles came out of the draft agreeing to terms with 18 undrafted players, then brought in a few more names from rookie minicamp tryouts. Nadeem Tucker and Isaiah World were definitely the bigger names from that group. But the hidden side of roster building is not only about names that get clicks, it is about fit, profile, tough paths, players who stay patient and still end up on the right radar. And Spomer feels like one of those players this staff is going to watch closely when voluntary OTAs begin on May 26th. He comes out of Fresno State. He is 6'2", 290 pounds, a redshirt senior, and his path was not easy at all. He started at left tackle, played there for his first 3 years at Fresno State, then suffered a serious ACL injury that cost him the end of 2023 and a major part of 2024. But this is the part that tells you something. After a coaching change, plenty of starters went into the transfer portal. Spomer stayed, he waited, he adjusted, he moved to center. And in his first year at the position, he finished as the highest-graded center in the conference by Pro Football Focus. That is not a small detail to me, because center is not just another body in the middle of the offensive line. Center is communication, it is protection calls, it is recognizing stunts, it is making adjustments before the ball is even snapped. And the reports point to exactly that with Spomer. He showed awareness, he worked through traffic, he did not get fooled by twists or stunts. And he has one trait that fits Mike McDaniel. He fires out of his stance, reaches tough targets, and adjusts well while moving. For a coordinator who likes agile interior linemen who can win with angles and movement, that gets your attention. Now let's be real about the depth chart. Tyler Biadasz was brought in to take the starting job. Jake Slaughter was drafted in the second round and could compete at left guard. Josh Kaltenberger is back from the 2025 practice squad. So Spomer does not have some easy path to the 53-man roster. But that is the behind-the-scenes question. If Slaughter wins the guard job, who is the true backup center? Is it still Slaughter? Does Biadasz have no real direct backup? Does the practice squad become the developmental spot for a player who has already shown he can adjust quickly? That is the kind of decision that feels small in May and huge in November. Because when injuries hit, when the line needs a change, when the whole offense depends on timing, you find out whether you had real depth or just a list of names. Spomer may not make the roster right away, but if he shows in camp that he can handle protections, move well in space, and prove that tackle-to-center transition is legit, the Chargers may have found a smart, cheap, system-friendly stash. And that is how serious teams create margin, not only at the top of the roster, but in the spots almost nobody is paying attention to. And that next piece feels like the kind of conversation happening away from the cameras, because the Chargers still have one thing that is too big to pretend is finished: free agency. The offseason slows down, names fall out of the headlines, fans start looking at the roster like everything is already locked in, but the front office knows May and June can still hide a smart move. And when you have roughly $45 million in cap space, according to Over the Cap, the question is not whether you can make a move. The question is where that move actually protects your season. That's where Taylor Decker enters the conversation. Not as some flashy signing, not as a magic fix, but as a name that makes sense when you think like a coaching staff, not like a wish list. Decker is 32 years old. He was the 16th overall pick. He asked for and was granted his release in March, and he is still available. ESPN's Matt Bowen listed him among the top available names, while noting that his 89.3% pass block win rate in 2025 was the second lowest mark of his career. His 67.9 Pro Football Focus grade, ranking 41st out of 89 tackles, also shows you we are not talking about a player at the very top of his prime. But roster building is almost never about perfect scenarios. It is about preventing the disaster you can already see coming. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are coming back from injuries. Trey Pipkins, a dependable swing tackle option, got hurt last year too. Travis Burke arrived through the draft, but he is still a rookie. Isaiah World is a big undrafted name, but he also comes with a physical situation to monitor. So if the line takes another hit, what is the plan? Wait until the middle of the season and chase another emergency answer, like they had to do with Bobby Hart? That is why Decker becomes a real conversation. Maybe he wants to chase a starting job on a weaker team. Maybe, if the market continues to move slowly, he accepts a depth role on a roster with a real chance to compete. For the Chargers, that would be the type of insurance that does not jump off a thumbnail, but absolutely settles down a coaching staff. Justin Herbert does not need more unnecessary hero ball. He needs protection, stability, and answers when the schedule starts taking its pound of flesh. And yes, Decker may not be the cleanest scheme fit for McDaniel's system, but there is a massive difference between searching for the perfect fit in May and surviving with emergency patchwork in November. Joe Hortiz does not need to spend money out of panic, but he also cannot look at an offensive line with a recent injury history and act like depth is a luxury. Sometimes the smartest move of the offseason is not the one that changes the top of the depth chart. It is the one that keeps one hole from swallowing the entire season. And notice how that Decker conversation leads directly into the most delicate part of this offseason. Protecting Herbert is one side of the equation, but the other side is happening inside the quarterback's own mind. Mike McDaniel is not talking like someone who wants to tear Justin Herbert down and rebuild him from scratch. That would be ridiculous. Herbert already has elite arm talent. He can attack outside the numbers. He can stand strong in the pocket. He makes throws half the league would not even attempt. What McDaniel seems to want is more subtle, and maybe that is exactly why it matters so much. Complete control of the job before the play breaks down. The number that bothers you is this. In 2025, Herbert averaged 2.90 seconds to throw, the 11th slowest mark among qualifying quarterbacks. He was also pressured on 43.3% of his plays, took 54 sacks, and absorbed 268 total pressures. Was the offensive line part of that? Of course it was. Nobody watching the Chargers honestly is putting all of that on the quarterback. But the coaching room does not live on easy excuses. It watches the tape and asks, which pressures were impossible to avoid, and which ones came from holding the ball half a second too long? That is where McDaniel can change the offense without stripping away Herbert's aggression. Because the answer is not turning this attack into some lifeless checkdown machine. Nobody wants Herbert playing scared. What Los Angeles needs is a cleaner rhythm, footwork connected to reads, a faster answer when the first route is covered, fewer snaps turning into forced improvisation. Herbert is so talented that it can feel like he can rescue any play. But in the playoffs, that belief can become a trap if the defense can slow his decisions and shrink the field. And the Chargers have already felt that in the worst way. Across their last two wildcard losses, they scored only 15 points. 15! For a team with Justin Herbert, that hurts because it does not match the ceiling of this offense. So when McDaniel talks about Herbert taking even more command, I hear a behind-the-scenes message. Less dependence on miracles, more possessions won before the pressure arrives. That is not shrinking the quarterback. That is freeing him from having to carry every snap like it is the final play of the season. The interesting part is that this leap may not show up as some viral August highlight. It might show up on 3rd and short. It might show up on a blitz identified before the snap. It might show up as a ball delivered on time, giving the receiver space to create after the catch. It might show up as Herbert taking fewer hits and the offense feeling simpler for him and more frustrating for the defense. So I want to hear from the fan base. Do you think Herbert's next jump comes more from better protection or from faster mental processing inside McDaniel's system? Because to me, that is the hidden key to the season. If Herbert stays the same ridiculous talent, but now processes faster, McDaniel does not just get a productive quarterback, he gets a commander. And when a quarterback at that level stops playing against the clock and starts controlling the defense's clock, the whole January conversation changes. And that is exactly why the final story in the middle of this script might be the most revealing one. Because when a coordinator sounds good at the podium, everything feels easy. New ideas, motion, outside zone, creativity, Herbert in rhythm, fans fired up. But the real behind-the-scenes truth shows up when the roster starts changing to fit his vision. And the Chargers are not just saying they believe in Mike McDaniel. They are putting pieces on the board like this offense already has his fingerprints on it before the first real series even happens. The Cole Strange signing, the Jake Slaughter pick in the 2nd round, the additions of Keaton Mitchell, Charlie Kolar, and Alec Ingold, none of that feels random when you really look at it. These are system moves, players for movement, angles, combinations, protection on the move, a more varied run game, and an offense that does not want to stand still and let the defense control the rhythm. That is exciting, absolutely. But it also raises the responsibility for everyone who signed off on this direction. Daniel Popper of The Athletic put that read pretty directly, pointing out that this entire offseason has been a major bet on McDaniel. According to him, McDaniel was an important force behind the strange signing and a central reason the Chargers did not pursue some other guards on the market. And Slaughter becomes another piece in that same line of thinking. That word matters. Line. This is not one isolated move, it is a sequence. Now let's face the uncomfortable part. Slaughter was viewed by many analysts as more of a fourth-round type of player, and he did not play a single snap at guard in college. The Chargers, meanwhile, may give him a real chance to win the left guard job. That is a bet. There is no pretending otherwise. The alternative on the roster involves Trevor Penning, so Los Angeles needed to get this interior build right. If Slaughter fits, the move looks visionary. If he takes too long, the pressure gets loud, because Herbert cannot be an endless laboratory for offensive line experiments. But I also understand why McDaniel would like him. Slaughter has agility, solid fundamentals, and the profile to work in space. Cole Strange fits that type of idea too. And when an offensive coordinator has a very specific model, sometimes he would rather have a player who can run the right part of the machine than a bigger name who does not move the way the offense needs. That is where the debate gets interesting. Fans look at draft value. Coaches look at function. The front office has to marry both without making the quarterback pay the price. And there is another behind-the-scenes detail nobody can ignore. If McDaniel hits in Los Angeles, he could get back on the head coaching radar fast. Maybe not in 1 year. Maybe he needs more time to rebuild that resume. But a coordinator at this level does not stay hidden forever when the offense explodes. So the Chargers are living in a fascinating window. They need to use his mind now, build the system now, speed Herbert up now, and at the same time create something that can survive if the market starts calling McDaniel again. To me, that is the real tension. Los Angeles has placed a major part of this offseason in the hands of a brilliant coordinator's vision. But that vision has to become production, not just concept. Motion has to become space. Outside zone has to become efficiency. Slaughter and Strange have to become stability. Ingold, Kolar, and Mitchell have to become clear roles, not playbook decorations. Because when a franchise shapes this much of the roster around one idea, it cannot treat the result like an accident later. If it works, McDaniel changes the Chargers' ceiling. If it stumbles, the question gets rough. How much of this roster was built around a promise that still had to prove everything in Los Angeles? So that is the picture today. The Chargers are not just stacking names. They are searching for fit. Spomer shows how depth can be built far away from the spotlight. Decker represents the kind of behind-the-scenes call the front office at least has to discuss if it wants to keep Herbert protected. McDaniel wants to speed up the quarterback's mind, not limit his talent. And the bet on Slaughter, Strange, and the rest shows Los Angeles is giving a real piece of this roster to the new offensive plan. Now it comes down to execution. Now it comes down to the field. If you believe this project can become a truly dangerous offense, subscribe to the channel and stay with me, because this offseason may be speaking quietly, but it is saying a lot.